Welcome to Lowcountry View of Hilton Head. My name is Earl Yates. I'm your host, and today my guest is Chief Dave McAllister, the Chief of Police in Bluffton, our neighbor town, our sister town. It's going to be a lovely interview just for the simple fact that there's so many things and aspects of Bluffton that we on Hilton Head have yet to venture off. We spoke off camera saying how so many people on Hilton Head think that Bluffton is so far away, yet it's right on the other side of the bridge. And to get things more acquainted with Hilton Head and Bluffton, I'll take the first step and I'll speak to Chief Dave.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Let's just start basically with that same thought right there. How Bluffton, being the neighbor of Hilton Head, and I would have to say more than neighbors, we are sister towns. How has that relationship now worked over this period of time where you have developed into such a beautiful and one of the largest towns in our state?
You know, I'll be here 6 years in February, and it's been fun to watch the evolution of Bluffton. I mean, to grow from 1 square mile about 4 years before I got here to 56 square miles that it is today, and to master plan the whole community, and to see so many hardworking people locating to Bluffton. That's what's really fun. I think that the difference, if there is one, between Hilton Head and Bluffton is we are getting some really good, hardworking folks coming and living in Bluffton. It has great schools, some wonderful schools. I have to tout them. My wife works at the high school, so I have to tout the schools. But so many of our military families who work in Beaufort come and live in Bluffton because it's got that nice family feel. It's still got a small community feel with some real amenities to it. So it's a great place to live and work.
Now, and you're relocating from where?
Newcastle County, Delaware. It's sort of a suburb of Philadelphia. So it was certainly I used to say I was a stranger in a strange land. I mean, it was very different for me, but I specifically chose this area. Number one, I'm very into water, boating, and things like that. So that obviously adds something. I wanted a smaller town, a little slower pace to raise my family in. We were in a very urban area, but also this presented an incredible challenge. Nowhere else in the country were you taking 1.1 square miles, turning it into 56, having to develop infrastructure, schools, public safety, and that's obviously where my love is, policing. I took a department that at the time was 10, it's now 37 officers. We took it from a period of some real distress and potential corruption, speed traps, things like that, to national accreditation. So, you know, that was a real challenge, build a new building, and I don't think you could get that opportunity anywhere else in the country in such a beautiful setting.
Well, of course, like you said, you've spoken of the growth period. We joked about before coming on about how, yes, Bluffton was known throughout the world, Guinness Book of World Record, for writing tickets. And that, I would guess, would have been done for profit, sure, as far as for the town aspect would be. Now, you've taken the Bluffton Police Department, and now you're changing it to more of a business format and running it just like you would have any other business. How is that working for you?
You know, it's working great because I think it protects the residents, it protects the town in terms of liability. But one of the things that's been interesting is, you know, I came to a town where some of the older residents still would like it to be a speed trap. They think that's the way you sort of slow people down and develop those models for it. I think one of the things that we've been very successful in doing is showing folks that police are at the front line of real community outreach and community change. We are so much more than just the law enforcers. We're also a beacon for collaborative efforts in any number of ventures. For example, in a traffic issue, rather than just look at the police and say, go enforce it, we now take a more global perspective and say, look, is this really a law enforcement issue? Is this an engineering issue? How can we bring those partners to the table to solve that issue? If there's a community issue, we use the SARA method of problem solving, which is where we go in and we scan the issue, we analyze the issue, we formulate a response, and then we look and analyze our whether that's been successful. And we look at it as a collaborative effort. Certainly enforcement is always going to be a piece of it, but certainly there's other pieces. For example, social services, or perhaps the education system, or perhaps a nonprofit. How can we globally attack problems, not just the cop on the beat who's just going to arrest people? We are not going to arrest our way out of a number of issues, but we can collaboratively problem solve our way out of them. And so that's been a challenge to get folks to understand that, but after 5, almost 6 years of doing it, I think they understand that that's really the way you're going to long-term fix some of these problems. Not go in, I can certainly go in and I can arrest bad guys, and we do that, that's no problem, but we need to be looking at why is there crime, why is there disorder, why is there fear of crime, what can we do? We look at it with a crime triangle. You need 3 things for a crime to occur. You need a victim, you need a defendant, and you need a location for that crime. If any one of those 3 doesn't exist, you don't get a crime. We, police, the traditional model was to lock up the bad guy. We're very good at that. Or are we? 17% of burglaries are solved nationwide. That's not a real, that means we fail way more than we succeed. But if we can make you safer in your own home by coming out and telling you things you can do, by putting up spotlights, cutting back bushes, putting an alarm system, getting a dog, approach the location, and the location comes out of the model, there's not a crime. If we can teach you to be safer as a victim, if we can teach you to be our eyes and ears, then we take you out as a victim, again, no crime. So we try to approach it from a little bit different perspective.
Well, that obviously sounds like you're dealing with it on not just a public servant side, but actual as a resident side. And that seems to be, I think when you look at an officer in uniform, your normal citizen has kind of a threat rate that goes up.
Sure.
I mean, it's like, okay, even if you're not a criminal per se, I mean, you see a cop around and you tend to not think of him as a human being, that he has a family, he goes to baseball games, or his kids are in the school just like yours. There's a certain defense. I don't know if that's because of a past trial of whether people have dealt with negative issues through the police department, or if it's just something that we're just put into. I know as kids, that's one of the things that that you raise your hand, I want to be a firefighter, a police officer. So for some reason, between that point when we were a kid, and that's what we want to do, to when we're adults, there is something that's not working there correctly. And it sounds as if the way that you're going about it, not trying to beat the guy on the top of the head after the crime is committed, but also to make sure that everyone's okay and understand how not to get there, seems like a no-brainer, but it's not that way always.
No, and without boring everyone on history of sort of policing, if you look back to the models of policing that came through the early part of this century, we were doing this. Community policing, what we call community policing now, is what the officer on a Chicago beat did. Kids got in trouble, he was there to talk to them, he took them home to their parents dealt with it. But and I certainly don't want to blame 911, but with the advent of 911 and we put police officers in cruisers and we became this professional, just the facts ma'am model, we sort of broke away from our past. And now I think that progressively we're going back to understand that 911 is a wonderful tool. It's probably misused more than it's properly used. We need to get back to that officer who's known on the street, who's known as Officer Tim or Officer Joe. I mean, that's where you want to get back, because that's where you're going to have an effect, a much more of an effect than just responding to calls. If I can break my officers out of, when I first arrived in Bluffton, all the officers drove cars with tinted windows. Can we put up a little more of a barrier? You got the radio, you have the computer in the car, you got air conditioning running, you have windows up with tinted windows. We tore all that tint off. There needs to be that vision, that connection with the community, and I think that there's a sort of a way to get back to it. And that we talked earlier off camera about, why do certain people perceive police as having a chip, or you said the alert level goes up. Well, understand that some of that's done on purpose. Everything we wear, if you go back to, the uniform is designed to be a show of government, a show of authority. You know, the way that officers stand, how they keep their hands, how they approach a car, everything they do is scripted for them. I mean, we teach them how to walk, how to talk, how to do all this stuff, and we need to continue to make sure that they still keep themselves safe. All of those great practices have reduced the number of officers killed in the line of duty dramatically since the 70s. But we've also broken away from you and I being able to talk on a corner and get that human connection. So we've got to find that middle ground, and I think that's what we're trying to do in Bluffton.
Well, that's perfect. What we'll do is we'll take a short break and come back. Well, of course, this has been Lowcountry View of Hilton Head with Earl Yates. I'm your host, Chief David McAllister. It certainly feels to me as if I'm talking to a real estate agent rather than a chief of police. I think this is why Bluffton is becoming the town it is now, because of this gentleman. But it's not over. He's going to come back in a couple of minutes, and we'll continue our conversation. Welcome back to Lowcountry View of Hilton Head. My name is Earl Yates. I'm your host, and for the second part of this show, I'll have the same guest, Chief David McAllister, the Chief of Police of Bluffton. Welcome back, of course.
Thank you very much.
Not that you've gone anywhere, but we're actually in the same spot.
Right.
But we left off speaking basically about how you've brought a different outlook to policing to the town of Bluffton. I'm sure your officers and the policemen that are walking around have the same outlook that you have, because you've come off as a very, very wise businessman. And of course, in wise business, usually those below the owner or boss is an extension of his own belief. And I would think that Bluffton is doing pretty well due to the fact that, you know, I'm pretty much enjoying being in your company.
Well, you know, well, thank you very much for the compliment. I think the officers, we work very hard to make sure that they understand the philosophy of the department, that we are a product that the town has to offer. And we talk about business. I always tell folks, you know, some areas look at police. I used to work with a mayor in my old jurisdiction. He used to call police a necessary evil. And it was a shame, because you don't want to look at them that way. We are a product. People don't go where they don't feel safe. So rather than hide us in the corner and say, well, they only come when they're crime, you tout them, you bring them forward, and you say what a professional, excellent department it has. This is the place you want to do business. This is the place you want to locate. I'll tell you a very quick story. I know of a businessman who's here in the Lowcountry, used to work up in Delaware with me. Great businessman, had a wonderful, wonderful establishment, and there was a horrific crime that took place right around the corner, and he lost his business because people stopped coming. And I lost touch with him, and when I moved here, I found him, and we talk a lot about that had the city that he lived in approached it as, look, safety is part of the total sales product. You mentioned earlier real estate agent. You know, I hope that we help sell houses. I hope that we help successful businesses come forward, that people want to raise their kids, their families, bring their parents down. You know, when I came here, I came as the complete package. I brought my wife, my son, and my folks who are in their 70s. You know, so I have a lot invested in the town of Bluffton to make sure that it's as successful as it can be. And if that means that I've got to learn about sewer and water quality and all the other stuff that, as a chief of police, I can link together, then I'll do that. Again, I don't want to tell stories all the time, but you talk about what else can we do besides policing. We also created a dumpster management program to help educate our customers as we deal with them, that how to maintain their dumpsters so as not to pollute the May River. That's not traditional policing. It could be. I could go cite them for littering. I could go cite them for a variety of violations as it spills out over the dumpster. But rather that, I learned and educated myself on how to keep clean water, and then we turned around and created something for our customers other than enforcement, bringing an education to it. And if, you know, of course, ultimately, if they don't do it, you know, there's a carrot in the stick. Yeah. But certainly you want to start with a carrot first. But policing can reach into every aspect of a successful town, in my opinion.
Well, I think the most important word that I heard was customer. mind you, we still are talking about a police officer here, well, chief of police, but still a police officer, that is saying a customer. He's talking about you. I mean, so most people have that attitude. If they're dealing with you, it's on the wrong side of the law, you know? So for you to have that outlook of you're dealing with the customer, which we spoke of earlier, that's an amazing thing. I mean, the whole concept of it, I think, changes the way people view you and changes their feelings of what they can do in response to your help. I do some work volunteer work for the Neighborhood Outreach Connection. And one of the things that we're searching to do is building a better communication base and relationship with the police department, with the Sheriff's Department of Beaufort County, because what better way of helping your community than to build a good relationship with those who police the community. And it seems that's already what you've had in place in Bluffton for 6 years while it's been growing.
Well, and we have 2 full-time officers whose sole responsibility it is to go out and do outreach for the community and help them problem solve. That's and they work in a unit called the Neighborhood Services Unit. It's really there to build, because strong, viable neighborhoods build a strong, viable town. When I talk about customers, I used to work at a bank, and MBNA America, it's gone now from the Great Depression, I guess, but they used to have a sign, think of yourself as a customer, and it really got to me. I mean, how do you want to be treated? I tell my officers, everybody we deal with, whether they're just getting a report or getting stopped for a violation or getting arrested, they're our customers. Now, they're not going to get treated the same, but they should get treated with respect, fairness, good, strong policies to guide the officers. I think everybody deserves good quality service from the police department. And I think that's what we're trying to bring to it, and that breaks down barriers so that when you and I are going to encounter each other, I'm a police officer, you're a violator of some type, you leave there, you may get a ticket, but you leave there understanding, okay, I get it. It's not a power trip. It was a communication back and forth between you and I about why we're doing what we're doing. So, you mentioned your community outreach program. I think that's so valuable to break down those barriers, to get into the communities, to show the young folks that police officers are people too. My experience with police officers has always been they're some of the most active in their communities. I have folks that coach Little League and work in the communities, who are active in their churches. So it's important to get that story out there that we're part of the community too. Very important to get our folks living in the community, because we shouldn't be an occupying army. I shouldn't come in and police you in an area and then drive 50 minutes home and live in my area and say, well, that's okay, he lives where he lives. No, I need to be part of that community. And Bluffton has some great housing options that the folks can come and live and work here. Now,
on the same subject, but a little different spin.
Sure.
This past weekend, of course, Kim Tatro did a wonderful job of putting together the Bluffton Block Party. And word has been going around that you had a phenomenal speech. That was just, that was very, very nice. I mean, I've heard it from Kim, of course, and a couple other people. And I'm here beside you, and I'm listening to you, and I'm still trying to focus the fact that I'm dealing with the chief of police just by the way you view the police department, which is a wonderful way. It's not a way that most people would think that a police department is being ran. So, man, it has to be politics in your future somewhere.
Well, no. I've always tried not to be indicted, so you don't want to get into politics. No, it's, of course, my job as I see it is to be a spokesman, to be a cheerleader for the folks who live in Bluffton and the folks who work in Bluffton, and of course to keep them safe. I take it very, very seriously. The event this weekend was wonderful. I mean, how could you not talk with some passion about 9/11 and where we've come and where we're going in America, and so I appreciate that. The compliment both you paid and Kim paid, but my job is to be out front representing the town of Bluffton, the Bluffton Police Department, and to make people understand that we arrest people and we stop people for violations, but there is a greater product there that we're doing. You know, one of the things we do in terms of traffic, we talk about the old speed trap. We only target areas by customer request or accident data. So we send our officers out and say, look, we've had customers have called and said they have speeding on this road, this road, this road, and we publish a list every month. Please go and do traffic enforcement on those roads. We also publish accident data to our officers and say, look, these are the 5 highest areas of accidents. Please do traffic enforcement. Because I don't want to go sit behind a stop sign where it drops from 50 to 25 and do it there if there's no accidents there. I mean, we want to try to take that approach about why we do what we do. Why do we do traffic enforcement? This is why. Why do we take a report on every domestic issue, whether it actually rises to the level of crime? Because we want to try to assist those families so that it doesn't get to an issue of domestic violence. So there's a number of ways that we offer a product, I think, that is good.
Chief McAllister, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. It was phenomenal. I hope you've taken enough from this to understand that the officers of the law that we have walking amongst us are our friends. They're a part of our community, and they hold just as an important piece of our lives as the fire department or your bankers or whatever, but I'd say it's a little special place for them because they do a lot more than just police us. They keep us safe, and they also make sure things are going well. He's talking about a dumpster and water. Man, I wish all of my my police chiefs in America is talking about safe communities, great dumpsters, and clean water. This has been Lowcountry View of Hilton Head. My name is Earl Yates, and of course, Chief Dave McAllister has been my wonderful guest. Have a great day.